till 7 o'clock. It's 19:59.
It's not. It was on.
It's 19:59 now. Still, I can see it.
It's not. It's not.
Like really early.
We're not on early. Nag.
Well, look at it though. It's still 19:59, and you're the one that calling me nag. You made me start it earlier. Look, there we go. 20 o'clock. That's it. 20. My phone's just told me.
Well.
So that it's 8 o'clock. I don't need you telling me that it's 8 o'clock.
Hang on a minute.
And anyway, people have been complaining about this.
God, it's like, you know, I didn't get nagged like that when I was married to Ellen. Nag.
Well, you should have told Ellen you were married to her.
Anyway, shh. We've had complaints.
Yeah, complaints about this at the beginning because they said that it's unprofessional and you are the one that's responsible for it. So,
what you mean now? You didn't even tell me you were going to press it.
I did press it. It's it's only just started for me then.
Well, you didn't tell me you were going to press it though, and you pressed it, and then anyway, we've
shut you up because like everyone's complaining about you were beginning your behaviour. We might have to isolate you. We might have to segregate you. We might have to put you in what they used to call at our school the unit.
The unit.
If you were in the unit. You were a bit of a nit, shall we say?
Yeah.
Anyway, everybody, welcome to Raconteurs News with me, Jason Holmes, and my erstwhile co-host, and also glasses wearer, as a proud glasses wearer, like I am, and everybody else probably that's watching this show, and maybe a proud glasses wearer as well, because we got a bit of a stick after talking about what's his face's glasses. Oh, Deirdre Taylor.
Why?
Well, people, the people are getting ultra sensitive, aren't they?
Oh, God.
Glasses.
Yeah, what they don't know is that I had a 2-hour chat to Taylor that night privately after we'd gone off air. Not that kind of private. Because anyway, right? Yeah. So we've got Karen and Bex on again, but they're not quite there yet, are they?
Not quite here yet, mate. No, they are not. Let me just check my email because they were sending me some stuff. Went me through the email system. The email machine was gonna. Well, I've got I've got something from Bex, so I've got some pictures from Bex.
Right.
So all we need now is Bex and Karen, and they did say that I've got them. Pictures.
Just bear with me a second. I just need to turn my dehumidifier off. I didn't realise I'd left it on, but the timer's come on. Hang on a minute. Sorry.
Oh, God. Yeah, I might. I think it is a bit. It might be this. It might be that I'm a bit.
No, sorry about that. It's no, that's it blows cold around me, and I've only got shorts on. Anyway, no, what I was going to say was the reason I wanted to get Bex and Karen back on is one, because Bex is really good in lots of different areas, and she's always incredibly well prepared, but then almost don't refer to any notes because it's actually within it, it's her heart and soul. But she's also been looking at the money that the government are promising to people, for employed and self-employed people and company directors. I know she's been doing a lot of work on that. And because of her background, she's also been doing a lot of work on the numbers of the supposed people who've died of this thing. And how it's all been worked out. And I know it sort of moves every day, this, doesn't it? And after a while, it drives you mental. What did Beryl have to say yesterday, Queenie, What was she spouting yesterday? Did you actually watch it? Or
I don't know. I ain't got a clue. I don't care what she's going to say.
no, I mean I didn't watch it.
No, I didn't watch it. When I knew it was coming on, I specifically didn't watch it because it really does irritate me watching things that, these things that everyone's supposed. It's all sitting there holding hands on the settees as the queenie, like, she's not Churchillian. She's like just this parasite now, and people, more and more people are beginning to understand that. So hopefully,
I mean, there is some good news in all this for her. It's certainly pulling people's attention away from her sons being paedophiles. And the fact that one of her grandsons, at least, is no more royal than my cat's arse. Oh, well, not unless... Actually, would you class Hewitt as royal? Don't guess you would you?
No. Well, no. I don't. He's gone quiet and all, hasn't he? Alice Georgeson has put lots presumed to have died of COVID-19. A lot of people are presumed to have died, and I heard something today. Somebody's dad or somebody had died, and it said after contracting the coronavirus. It doesn't say died of the coronavirus.
Yeah, exactly. Well, have you heard...
died after testing positive.
Apparently, Eddie Large has also died.
Oh yeah. Rock on, Tommy. I loved him. He was great.
Okay. Eddie Large. That's the other ones. And he's had a bad heart for years.
And died of heart failure. He'd been in hospital for months with heart failure.
But it was noted that he tested positive for coronavirus. And he died after testing positive for it. Don't mean he died of it.
No.
The way I understand it is, and having now watched many things from doctors or people who claim to be doctors, that a virus is merely your body expelling the poisons that have somehow got into it. So it could be environmental, it could be electrical, and in some way your cells are breaking down, apparently. But anybody who's ever had anything that's a relation of corona or anything will have these antibodies and will therefore test positive. And the main thing that I saw was, what was the doctor's name? Can't remember. And I thought I could... Kaufman? I think it's Kaufman. He explained how they actually came up with this test that's not really a test. And that was, they took apparently 7 of these people from China, extracted fluid from their gut, and from that came up with, it's this is what the test is, which is everything corona-ish, not just, hello you two, everything corona-ish, not just that. And so they haven't even got a test for it. So anyway, we've got the ladies who've just joined us. Morning.
Hey. We'd just like to say that this screen is quite small, but in this room we are quite far apart.
Why?
2 meter social distancing.
Are you having a laugh?
Just being politically correct.
We are being very politically correct.
We're never politically correct, so we thought we would make an exception tonight.
So I'm really forward and Karen's 2 meters back.
Well, okay. Well, that's absolutely superb that you're complying with the government's instructions. I'm 2 meters away from anybody that's alive. Anybody that might have coronavirus. There's no tigers around me that might have coronavirus.
I know
that's shocking, isn't it?
Yeah.
You might have something to say about that, but anyway, guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tonight, because last time it were a bit. I promise you, I'm completely sober.
No,
Tonight,
no have stress days.
We're not.
I'm going to concentrate on making the stuff all work for you. So, Eddie, go on. You can take the.
We're
You
not.
take the train with these two.
Oh I was just going to post something in the private chat thing, but I'll just read it out anyway.
Get rid of my head.
Just before we go there, Shield Destroyer Mark says he's banned from video posting for 2 weeks, though I'd imagine something big will happen on Sunday. So I might not be around to care anyway. So, well, okay then. Right, intriguing. Right.
Yeah.
What I was, a couple of things that I just wanted to get us into the subject for before you kind of go through your photos and your slides, and because I know you've been doing a lot of work on the all this money that's supposed to be magically coming from the government for employed, self-employed, etc. But a few things that I just wanted to mention. Something that I said on Webby's show the other night. I'm actually now pretty pissed off with the general population who just seem to be even more like dumb shits than even I thought they were. I thought this would really be enough to wake up, because even though they've led their lives so far in blissful ignorance, it's not really affected me much, other than I've got to live within a system that is completely bogus. But now it has, because now I can't go out. I can't go and do what I want to do, even though I ain't even thought about what I want to do yet. So now their stupidity is having an effect on me, and I'm getting a bit pissed off. Definitely things that it's changed. I mean, this is just the things that I've come across in the past couple of days. One that really pisses me off, and that's online banking. I have had to go down the route of online banking, because even by ringing them up, because they've got so few people working, I can't get done what I want to get done at the bank. So I've had no choice but to start using online banking. And the other one is as well cash machines. I just wonder how long we think they're going to last, with cash machines, and whether they're going to pull you can catch coronavirus off a cash machine.
Yeah.
It's just going to be the fucking catch-all for everything. I had my bin emptied. My bin was emptied this morning. You're going to love this. They have taken away green bin emptying, which is garden waste, until the danger passes. Now, what the fuck the danger is of a guy in a van coming to fetch my grass cuttings, I ain't got a fucking clue. But apparently, until the danger passes, they're not going to be emptying my green wheelie bin. But the other one was the other half of this sticker on my bin this morning. If you are self-isolating because of coronavirus, please bag your rubbish like clinical waste, basically, and tag
you have
it.
that on your bin?
Yeah, and tag it.
Right. I mean, they might not come and collect the green ones, because they might just be saying it's an extra unnecessary visit and risk of exposure. Or
is it more sinister that they don't want people in the gardens, in fresh air, and most importantly, in the sunlight, which is your immune boosting start after a long winter? I think there's something even more sinister. They don't want people to be anywhere where they can get benefits for health.
And the other one that came to me as well, now this I have not confirmed with it. I did hear this from 2 sources, but I've not checked it out. But apparently, Ofcom have issued warnings to the mainstream media that if they do anything that links 5G to coronavirus, they're just going to shut them down.
Yeah.
That is happening massively.
The government's made a statement quite clear on that, which speaks quite a lot, doesn't it?
It's almost
right.
Vaccines are perfectly safe, really. So why is there a vaccine compensation scheme then? It's just ridiculous, isn't it? It is just nothing to see here.
The issue with the money, Boots earlier on last week I handed a £20 note over, and it was like, no, card please. I went, no, I've got cash.
Yeah.
And she took it. She wasn't happy, but she had gloves on. I don't really know what the problem was.
Yeah.
The thing with the gloves thing gets me that my skin, unless it's broken, is a natural barrier against disease. Yeah.
Mm.
So whether this woman is wearing gloves and touches her face, or isn't wearing gloves and touches her face, what's the fucking difference?
I think at this time people are so fearful of something unknown, which we all are, and that's a natural reaction. But until people can be assured of the truth as to what's going on, that fear factor isn't going to settle. And there's a lot of people, I think, who's asking a lot of common sense questions as to what's going on, why things have rolled out the way they have, when in past years the flu has never flagged up on any government radar regards
Exactly.
societal shutdown. Conspiracy theorists are being absolutely ridiculed for coming up with any alternative explanation as to what's going on. Government's trying to shut down any alternative explanation as well. And it's down to citizen journalists going out with their own phones and filming and uploading. And
my son's girlfriend just spent a day or so in hospital. She ended up getting, well, she thought she got gallstones or kidney stones, but it ended up being none of those. And one, they wouldn't let Danny into the hospital to see her. When he actually went to take her the clothes that he almost found, well, he never did find her any pajamas because he was so long queuing outside each supermarket to find out that they'd not got any ladies' pajamas that I think he eventually ended up getting her a t-shirt and a pair of shorts and taking him to the hospital. But when he got there, I said, "Oh, was it all busy with these?" He said it was empty. There's nobody there.
Yeah.
He said it was like the car park was just like, he says, like it probably is at 3 o'clock in the morning. Just like nobody there. Just empty.
So I just tend to think until people are happy with the explanation as to what's going on, there's going to be lots of questions, which generates more uncertainty, more worry, because for a lot of us, we don't trust the government, we don't trust what they're coming out with. I certainly don't.
Well, Don Tellenpike, who's a fellow Sheffielder, and I think used to come to our meetings.
Yeah,
pretty sure. But he's just put a question in saying we've lived with viruses for years and years and years, forever. You know, what's so different about this one?
Oh, yeah. Oh, breaking news. Boris Johnson's just been taken into intensive care.
Oh, that's just come up on Karen's iPad.
Oh dear. Nothing trivial, I hope.
No.
Yeah, but that's interesting.
It is, yeah, very.
So he's obviously deteriorated in there.
Oh.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you guys think as to what you think is an alternative explanation for what's going on. Do you have any opinions as to the relationship with that and 5G?
I think it's far too simplified and easy. You know, the 5G coronavirus thing to slip together, and it doesn't make, for me, it makes a lot of sense to get people to say that you know, I've seen things in mainstream articles saying nut job conspiracy theories over coronavirus and 5G. Now, I don't know whether it's got to the point where they thought, well, this is getting so big, we've got to address it, or which they don't usually, because I mean, that never happened where France were concerned when they were rioting every weekend. You know, that never got big enough for them that they had to address it. So I don't believe that. I do believe that people are being directed towards that and away from something else, and I don't know what the something else is. You know, that's the thing. Is the 5G and coronavirus? I've got no doubt are linked. I don't think they're linked together, but they're linked to the same pop game, if you know what I mean. Same strategy. So
I think what's interesting is I was watching a couple of the documentaries that, funnily enough, have been online for a couple of years now about the Spanish flu. So I did a bit of cross-referencing with the timelines, and I think image capture one.
Give me a second. That will be this one.
Yeah. I've just screenshot those of what I've been sort of watching on YouTube, and there's loads of information, and people can pick and choose what they want to believe in and what they want to look at. But I found this very interesting 40-minute presentation on the history of the Spanish flu, which kicked in around 1918 for a couple of years. And that happened to be the same time first radio went global. And the Spanish flu was absolutely horrific, but it was also known as the swine flu back then. And there was millions of deaths. And when you watch the documentary, it is quite interesting that there is a lot of relationship to the military. And actually, there was more loss through the swine flu back then than there was actually from World War One, because it clashed at the same time. But they talked about 20 to 40-year-olds dying in less than 12 hours, being very healthy people. And the documentary talks about the blame being on pigs and birds. So that came out of the blue, killed an awful lot of people very, very rapidly. And they talked about it being 3 waves. It came in 3 waves. It came, went, came, went, came, went. So that's something to just bear in mind. I mean, you then look at 3G. I haven't gone further back to see if there's any other.
Bex, just go back to Spanish flu. As I'm to understand, when I looked at Spanish flu, it started off in a military base, and the flu symptoms weren't even flu symptoms. It wasn't what we'd call an influenza.
Yeah.
It didn't start in Spain. It actually started in the UK.
And I think it was to do with the military, though. There was clusters around.
Was it not when they were switching on the radar? Was that not when they switched on radar?
No, that was Second World War.
That was Second.
Radar, Second World War.
If you go back and look at the timeline for the First World War, Spanish flu hit with the same First World War. You look, the Second World War, it was radar. And if you look for 3G, interestingly, 3G was around 2002, 2004 time when you start to dig up when it was available and when it fully came online. And when you cross-reference it with SARS, and you can look at that on the NHS website. I think there's another slide next.
What I need you to do is, I'm confused enough. You said slide 1, and you sent them to me.
Oh, sorry, A, B, C. There you go, 1, 2, 3.
Look, we've managed to get him sober. For fuck's sake, don't confuse him with numbers and letters as well. He can only do half of countdown at a time. It's either got to be numbers or letters.
Would it be that one?
Yeah. Now this one was put up by another chap who's trying to alert as many people as possible. And some people might think he's too off the page with regards to how concerned he is about mass deaths, high figures like what happened with the Spanish flu. But this is a public notice that was around at the time in British Columbia and Canada. And very similar, not too dissimilar to the notices that we've been having today or this time later, 100 years later. But when you look at 3G, 3G talks about SARS coming out in 2002, 2004. And around the same time, we've got SARS coming out between 2002 and 2004. And the SARS was severe acute respiratory syndrome. And I think you guys will have remembered when SARS started to be classed as a pandemic, which never was.
Do you know? I remember that being the first time I'd ever even heard the word pandemic. I'd heard epidemic, which I always thought was the worst thing that you could have, and then all of a sudden there's this even bigger, scarier word. The fuck's a pandemic? And I think that's the first time that I'd actually heard the word.
And then this one was supposed to have originated in China as well in 2002. As a strain of the coronavirus found in small mammals and that had mutated to infect humans. So the SARS happened around the same time as when 3G did.
Mm.
And then if you go to slide C.
Slide C. Go on.
Yeah, that's the link if people want to read about it. A nice quick summary on the NHS website about SARS with the timeline. And when you look up 3G with Wikipedia, the timeline matches. If you then go to look up about the swine flu, which is even more in our recent memory, which was 2009, 2010, you find that coincides with 4G. That's the next slide after. Don't worry about that one. We'll come to that.
Sorry.
No worries. So the swine flu 2009, 2010 originated from Mexico, supposedly, and was a swine flu similar to flu viruses that affect pigs. This was known as the H1N1. I think we can all remember that. But that seems to follow a timeline of instigation of 4G.
Is that 2014?
Sorry?
Is that about 2014?
2009, 2000.
Right. Because all those piglets died in China.
Right.
And that was one of these.
Oh, no, piglets.
But the thing is, it's like, are we going to look at something similar with COVID-19, following a similar pattern? Because what's happened with these previous ones, once everything's died down, they've added components to the flu vaccine. So now H1N1 is supposed to be covered. And the previous one was as well. It says here, as many people now have some level of immunity to the H1N1, it's much less of a concern. And also it's been added into the circulation for vaccines for seasonal flu. So there is a bit of a pattern, whether people want to look into that and just say it's mere coincidence, or whether they think that there's something else going on. It's left to viewers to make up their own minds. But I have to say, when you consider what radio is, which is a frequency, a wave, and that's carrying data and information, and people seems to have reacted to each time that radio wave intensity is increasing. Have the government planned, I'm just putting it out there out of curiosity, but it seems to be catching my attention a lot. Have they put it out there, all the planning with the large hospitals, the Nightingale, and programming us all to stay inside because they're trying to say it's a typical flu virus, but a different one now, because they knew this would happen when 5G started to roll out? Just saying, I don't know what you think to that, or whether you think it's just coincidence.
Well, I'll bow to your better knowledge. I don't really know, these dates, but they do seem to correlate.
Yeah, they do.
We all remember H1N1, swine flu, bird flu. There's SARS. There's been so many that were on the way, and this seems to be the only one that's decided it's going to go all the way. And I don't know whether the vaccinations is something to do with it.
Well, that's also something. Is that part of it? That's supposed to affect your immunity. I strongly believe it does damage your immunity. Does that make your body vibrate at a different frequency? Because we are all electromagnetic entities that are vibrating at different frequencies. Our organs are supposed to resonate at different levels. We have radiation from the sun. Radio is a form of radiation. And people tend to forget that when they put their morning radio on. That's why you have radio in radiator and radiation. It is a form of energy that is being bombarded. And did people react to that first dose of radiation in the form of radio in 1918? And have we reacted since with the flus that keep changing and altering? And it's interesting that they use the term flu as seasonal and a wave of flu. They always talk about a wave of flu. And I thought, hang on, wave is also like radio. Radio is a wave, a frequency. And is that a coincidence that they use that term?
For me, the big flag is when we've got Ofcom saying, you know, any link between 5G and Corona, and basically we'll switch you off.
Yeah, but I know, but that's how they work. They know.
Yeah, I know. I'm not done yet.
So they're going to say it as soon as somebody sees it, they're going to jump upon that, right?
Yeah.
They're going to jump on it, and everyone's going to be jumping on it, and that for me is why it's too easy.
The thing is, though, common sense, radiation, data in radio and how radio frequencies work, they are part of the electromagnetic spectrum. They are a form of radiation. And because we only hear it, we tend not to think it's like out of the category, it's completely separate to the sun when it isn't. When that data is now going up and up from 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, the spectrum range of that radio is going higher and higher. We're entering into the Internet of Things. There's those different frequencies now that were sold off from the military. You know what active denial systems are like when it's used as an energy to attack people, to disperse crowds. There is a bit of I think it's more than coincidence that there's a connection going on. Yeah. And I think the body is reacting to it. And there is a theory that depending on what your DNA structure is like, they can work out how many they expect to die from being exposed to high levels of radio frequency. Whether that's going to be tied in with how many people they're going to get tested, whether the testing is a false flag to make you believe you've got a virus and an infection in a typical sense, to distract from really what is going on, bearing in mind how many satellites have we now got surrounding the Earth that's 5G enabled to absolutely cover us in it.
There's no way you can do anything that is so against nature by firing up 20,000 satellites to surround the planet, throw all of this stuff out and not expect to have ramification to human life. In fact, all life. And if you look back to when they were first putting out the 5G in America in particular, was it Bloom's, what was his name? Bloomberg or Bloom's? Who?
It'll be Bloomberg.
There was one of the guys who was heavily involved in it, and he said, if anybody tells you that they know what 5G is, run a mile, they do not. The people who are creating this Internet of Things and encasing the world in this technology don't themselves know what they are unleashing. And this pandemic could be the cover so that when people die from the 5G, it's covered by this virus. They could be ramping up. And interestingly, Canada, this country, Australia and America have all got 5G engineers out there installing it while everybody's locked down. Now, that doesn't tell you there's something very wrong. It should.
In an empty street in the town where we live, there was a BT Open Reach van.
And it's Open Reach who are installing private wires. That's the subsidiary of BT. And they are out there and they're slapping these onto schools and God knows where else. It's disgusting. And if you research, you will get plenty of videos where individuals who are switched on to the dangers of 5G have seen people installing, film them, question them, and they're saying they're doing, they're installing 5G. And also,
I would ask you this, Karen and Bex. Let me just ask you this, Right. Well, if they're installing this, if this is all to distract us because they're installing 5G in schools and in different buildings
I
and
don't
in
think
different,
it's a distraction. I think it's to cover up what's going to come.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have done that during the summer holidays because there's a lot of people off work. It's always quiet. I know. I used to drive, so summer holidays were great because there's nobody on roads. So they could have done that, all that in the summer holidays. All I'm saying is that this 5G link to this virus to me seems far too convenient. Far too convenient. So we're all looking.
I can understand what you're saying, and that you think it is convenient. I'm the flip side, and I think the flu virus, COVID-19, is too convenient. I'm the reverse side. I'm sort of the mirror of what you're thinking on that. I think the coronavirus and the creation of a vaccine is the classic cover story for another annual flu shot combination of what's in.
And I think that the flu shot will have the chip in it. So they do want to do that. So that could make people just roll up their sleeves because they're all scared shitless over this. So they could roll the sleeves up. But the 5G, they've got to get it installed because that is their ultimate plan. That everything is linked to the 5G. It's got to be to have the complete control that they want, which will be a cashless society, which will be every other part, everything in your house will be talking to a hub that will be feeding out to whoever wants to tap in and know. And as everybody knows, it's the selling of items now. It's data is king. There's nothing more important now than data. What better way to have everything data? Your bottle of water, the pills from your doctors will communicate. So whether you've drank enough, not done enough, and then you can be penalised. You've been a problem to society because guess what? You didn't diet. You didn't do this. You've become a burden. And that's where it's going. We've already got kids hating the older generation because of you have stolen our future. You, old, have stolen our youth.
Have you really had any experience of young people saying that you old people?
Oh God, yes.
Have stolen our future?
When this virus first broke, there was masses of hate online where there was youngsters saying, and I've seen the videos and clips and photoshots of it, where the youngsters were saying, we will have to have a second referendum after this because all the old people will die. And then other people went on, that's the mildest form, to people saying, if I get the virus, I'm going to infect as many old people as possible so we can remain in the EU.
Look. I think if they want to remain in the EU, the better way to do that. I mean, the young people thing. I can imagine. I've seen it. I have seen it online. I haven't seen it personally. But all I'm saying is that we can all be manipulated in this. So the youngsters,
social engineering,
absolutely.
Sorry,
the other thing is the 5G campaigners against the harm of 5G have been campaigning religiously for the last few years to governments, to the UN, globally about the serious health concerns of non-ionizing radiation with the existing 3 and 4G, what it's done to the human body and to animals and to life on Earth.
All life.
And they have been absolutely campaigning, raising concern at the highest level with hundreds and hundreds of doctors and specialists globally, all coming together, signing letters in unison, going to court, raising in America at Congress and saying how dangerous it is, what their concerns are to humanity over this, and that it will be a killer. When you've got that happening, and people are dumbed down because they want the latest gadgets, they've not been interested in the health effects. And so when you suddenly bring this to the attention as a possible reason for the coronavirus, people suddenly go, whoa, as if they didn't know anything that it was harmful with the 3G, 4G to start with. If they knew that and had some knowledge of the 5G groups that are opposing 5G because of the harm to health and life itself, it wouldn't come as such of a bigger shock, I don't think, in considering the excuse for rolling this out as a way of distracting people from realising it could potentially be the switch on of 5G. That's sort of what I just wanted to say.
If they're switching on 5G and they know that there's going to be masses of deaths for people who are more susceptible than perhaps others, what better way to have a pandemic sitting over the top of it? Who's going to know what killed who?
We all know that the pandemic is a load of bollocks.
Yes.
Okay.
It is with regards to the annual statistics of flu.
Other than crashing the economy, what has been the thing that has made it have to happen now? That's my question, but I've got a couple of questions in the chat room from people. Have you been watching Barry Trower?
Yes.
Yes, when we first learnt about the harm of 3G, 4G, he does very informative videos, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And
we've had Barry Trower on the show. Barry Trower's on the show with me and Andy in the early days. So yeah, it's a good guy.
Another good point earlier. I've had to flick back and catch this one 3 or 4 times. Cider guy. Didn't realise until today that Bill and Melinda Gates are funding Professor Ferguson at Imperial College. Imperial College, for those of you that don't know, are the ones who do the computer models that say that 257,000 billion trillion people are going to die. And then a week later they say, well, it might get down to 10,000. And then a week later they go, well, maybe a couple. They're really good at these computer models that turn out to be complete crap. Anyway, funding Professor Ferguson at Imperial College, who is the man advising government on lockdown, etc. And is the same person advised on swine flu, Ebola. They're the same ones that keep coming up with these computer models. Again, funded by Gates.
Somebody's put in chat room, you cannot catch a virus. Well, you cannot catch a virus, it's not living, right? Now,
It isn't living.
That's somebody from the chat room, Angie Davis has just put that right now. From what I can from my experience of anything, all I remember is that when I became a father, when my daughter had the polio vaccine, I had to have it at the same time because it was going to excrete. If I were going to be changing a nappy, I could be exposed to it because it would have been excreted out of her. Is that what? Do you understand what I mean?
I put my hands up. I'm very knowledgeable with regards to the history of the polio vaccine, apart from the fact it was on a sugar cube. So they talk about viral shedding, don't they? About those that shed a lot and those that don't shed anything. Then there's the debate on a virus is not a living entity. It's not a bacterium. It's not a viral. They're different structures.
It's a parasite.
Or it is actually a chemical excretion from your body when your body is unwell. So if there's a cluster of people whose bodies are unwell for whatever reason, that the environment may be affecting them, they can come out with similar symptoms. That can then look as if someone's got an infection. Then there's people talking about exosomes, which are the shedding of little vesicles within your body. Then when they're triggered to do so, they cause reaction. Yeah. So virus, seems to have been the word that's latched onto every cold and flu since 1969. That's when virus started to get used. Yeah. And before that, it meant chemical poison. It was put for any plant liquid or anything like that in nature that was poisonous was called virus. So the word has changed for regards its meaning over the years, and I think it's changing again with this exosome terminology.
And I mean, it's very hard to know.
The way I'm to understand it in a very, very simplistic way is either a radiation or a poison or something around us gets into our body. Some people are more susceptible than others.
Yeah.
At the point of it becoming where our body goes, hang on a minute, I've got too much of this, I've got to get rid. The cells break down, and the poison is basically flushed out of our cells, and we would sweat it out or cough it out or whatever.
One strong school of thought, yes.
That is a strong school of thought, but people, when you explain that, they say that's not true.
But then the other type of, that's how I understand a virus.
Yeah.
So, and now if the same thing's been affecting a load of people, you could go, there's a viral outbreak. Well, yeah, it's probably true. But what if you said viral outbreak to most people, they would go, oh, that means I can catch it. Fucking hell, that's bad. Ooh. Yeah. And that's exactly what they've done. They then latched onto that, come up with some bullshit test that isn't even a test for anything more than a coronavirus, and a lot of flu type symptoms I'm to understand are caused by a coronavirus. If this test that we're supposed to have actually did was something that you could catch, surely there'd be more people with it. But then again, it's the same old thing, isn't it? You know, when I say airport security is a load of shit. Oh, well, there's not been any bombs because we've got the security. And it's a double ledger, isn't it? We've not got any security, but would we still have any bombs? You know,
the thing is, people have grown up in a generations of supposed to be able to trust government, trust the NHS, they can do no wrong.
Yep.
A friend recently trying to give them information for them to think differently. What I'd given was, the term was, no, that's a cult. You know, that's upsetting me. We must believe the government. And that, to me, is an example of when people have become very fixed and entrenched with social programming and the propaganda avenues of typical mainstream. Or is it a case where it's too horrible to think that could be done by your government, by your country to you, and they can't cope with that, and then you get that cognitive dissonance kick in. Oh no, too much to do. That would just break me. I'd rather not think about it, so I'll bat it off and shut my door, and everything's all right.
Or maybe somebody who's heard something before, like, you know, similar, somebody like me already, and thought to themselves, "Oh God, fucking hell! I mean, listen to that." Sorry, we don't, you know, I don't want to listen to him, you know, because he's like a lunatic. And then suddenly, it, you know, in the Reddit clicks, everything what this guy was saying, everything, but like you said, cognitive dissonance then kicks in, and they try to reframe it. They try to reframe it in a way that allows them to sleep at night. But it's just that the night's sleep are about to go. You know, how are they going to reframe this into a place where they can, you know, reframe it into something that's going to allow them to sleep at night? I mean, it's a
well, you can't, because at the moment it's just so overwhelming, because this is multi-pronged, isn't it? I mean, we're seeing all of the economies throughout the world, just about all the economies throughout the world crashing. I mean, how do we come forward from this? This isn't going to be a recession. Yeah. We're about to enter a depression because the banks are not freeing up the money for the businesses. And the difference between a recession and a depression is whether there's work after the recession, or if there isn't work after the recession, it's classed as a depression. If these businesses are all failing to get what they need to survive this time during the lockdown, then we will go into a depression. And what better way to take utter control of a country or multiple countries than to be completely in control of everything anybody can have, purchase, not purchase, because everybody will be so fixed on keeping the roof over the head, food on the table. Nobody's going to be in a position to check, challenge, defy, whatever. And I don't believe for 1 minute that we'll get the police sticky little mitts of all the new powers, their new toys, because they really are going to town on it. And a radio interview by a former senior police officer and former police commissioner, crime commissioner, was being interviewed. Admittedly, he's not, he's retired, but he made it quite clear on the radio that the police should be allowed to taser people on the streets if they're not compliant. And if that doesn't work, batons or more serious ways of control to keep the streets empty. I can't believe, I mean, the guy interviewing him couldn't believe what he was hearing, but for anybody listening to that interview, it was shocking. And he actually quoted, like, the police in Spain. And I don't know if you've watched any of the footage from Spain, but I have seen, perchance, checking somebody out for joining a group. And because I couldn't access his page, I then clicked onto his friends link and went onto a friends link, to get a gist, a feel for this person before I accepted them into the group. And on this friends page was obviously foreign, Spanish, and the footage there wasn't any interpretation, but you didn't need interpretation. You just needed to watch it. And it was barbaric. They brought down the baton on the guy in the street, and they're all off the balconies, were screaming and hollering down. A woman had come out of a shop to try and help the guy who had been savagely beaten with a baton by two police officers. I believe the man looked like he was drunk because he was giving them some grief, but he didn't put hands on. He was just arguing whatever his point was. I couldn't understand because it was in Spanish. But when the female came out, she was animated and agitated, and you could hear her voicing, loudly her displeasure at what was happening. And the next thing that happened was the police officer raised his baton, and it came down either on the side of her face, her head, or into her neck area. It was too far away to say clearly, but she went down as if she'd been poleaxed. And I just thought, if that's the streets in Spain, it is shocking. There was no mercy.
And I think people are worried that if the lockdown continues, how long are people going to remain compliant when they're all caged in? But going on the issue of radiation, radio, and flu symptoms, can you click on to the next slide, Jason?
Sorry, I was just talking to my wife. That will be...
I hope she's got a breathing apparatus on.
This one.
Yes, that one. Now, if everyone has time, you go and look this up. This is one example. I literally just typed into Google radiation, radio, and flu symptoms, and this came up. And it's a reputable journal article on PubMed, and this isn't the only one. And it says flu-like symptoms following radiofrequency liver transection, a new variety of the post-radiofrequency syndrome. And it talks about a cluster of patients who underwent the same procedure of radiofrequency. So they had an operation done with waves that was done on the liver, and 11.5% of them had to be readmitted because they developed flu-like symptoms after hepatectomy without any evidence of sepsis or infection. So they weren't brought back in because of infection. They were brought back in because they had flu-like symptoms, which were severe enough to warrant readmission, and they were given anti-inflammatories, and they recovered. Now, that's equipment that's being used in hospitals for procedures on patients that is radio waves at a specific frequency, that in 11.5% of those patients who developed flu symptoms, flu-like symptoms. So if we're using technology that can cause that to an individual in close proximity at a certain frequency, it doesn't seem too far-fetched to say, has there been any correlation of similar, as they call it, a post-radio frequency syndrome? Is this a global post-radio frequency syndrome as a result of 5G rollout? Did we have it when radio first came online? Was that a radio frequency syndrome, the Spanish flu, which they called swine flu? Is it the same with the 3 and 4G? There is some thought that the symptoms have to be, the body can cope with it for so long. And I think I've read a term of about 6 months before people kick in with symptoms.
It is 6 months, isn't it?
Yeah. So again, another food for thought, curiosity of if you could get flu symptoms after a hospital treatment involving radio waves, having it done globally doesn't seem that far-fetched either, does it? So,
No.
especially when they both involve, when you read the article, fluid retention and lungs. Same thing. This is what the worst symptom is supposed to be with this coronavirus, requiring ventilation. So how much can be staring you in your face right in front of you when they say you can't see the wood for the trees? Because we've been surrounded with it and we've had a low dose each time.
And
a slow upgrade, and the ramping up. And now they're going for the kick in.
Yeah. And don't forget, Wuhan.
Wahoo.
Wahoo. Do you know, I just had a
It was a third with some lemonade.
You let me have an excuse.
Yeah, I ripped you that one, didn't I?
Yeah. That was one of the major 5G test beds in China. And that's where the virus has emanated from. I don't believe in coincidences, I really don't. But they were also saying that the activists and some of the footage and accounts that were actually coming out from China against the odds, because obviously China was trying to contain everything for their advantage, obviously. They were saying people were going down in the street, literally blue in the lips. They couldn't breathe. It was coming on like that. And that's not normal for any pneumonia type symptom. There's something more sinister. And why would that be happening? And there's a correlation between 5G and the body's ability to transport in your body, you know, in your blood cells, oxygen. So there's too many little snippets out there that if you start putting them all together, you've got to start seeing it.
Yeah. What's the next one? I've forgotten what we're up to.
Just a question before we quickly move on. Is Karen in a Shackleton's high seat chair?
How rude! No,
not me. I'm only reading it out. Don't blame the messenger.
No, it's not. It is Bex's chair. It's incredibly warm and comfy.
Right. This at the same time.
Sorry.
This is from gov.uk, and it's published on the 20th of February, just when things started to ramp up with the government and the statutory instrument got kicked in, didn't it, for all the measures that they started to unfold with this coronavirus outbreak, inverted commas. And they are now at the middle of this, when we're supposed to be supporting every person in this country for funding. They give out 65 million of a package for new 5G trials across this country. And I do urge people to go and have a look at this article, which is 9 pages. And they're planning to dish out all this money to 9 projects across the country, especially in small rural areas where they want to set up 5G trials. So one area is Sherwood Forest, by the way, but then there is North Yorkshire. There's a cluster of villages in North Yorkshire. There is rural Dorset. It's going to be set up there. What's the other ones? North Yorkshire. There's a few anyway.
I've got a list of the cities and the towns that they've got, but not any villages yet.
So what I'm saying to people out there is please have a look, see if it's anywhere near you, because the likelihood is they will be putting in infrastructure in your areas if you're on that list. And if you haven't heard about the harm of 3G, 4G and the serious risks to health that they expect with 5G, please start looking it up, because the government is hell-bent on rolling this out. And what better way is to just say the coronavirus keeps coming back for a further wave. Yep, did it 3 times when radio first got introduced. It could come back 3 times this time. Have we got another one?
Yeah, we've got loads. Yeah. Here we go. This is next one.
Oh, yeah. Just to let everybody know, if you didn't know already, we did have the Corona bill that was going through Parliament. They've whizzed it through like grease lightning. We now have the Corona Act 2020, which is the big piece of primary legislation, which is now in force, available for everybody to look at online.
Is it a statute or an act?
It's an act.
Oh, well, that can fuck off then, because I exclusively claim common law. So off your fuck, officer.
That's it. So off this primary piece of new legislation, you bet your bottom dollar there's going to be a number of statutory instruments, which is secondary legislation, which are likely to follow whenever they want further control. I really suggest people don't be fearful of looking at legislation. There are information tables and documents that help explain parts of each individual act. But if you just click on each of the headings, you get a breakdown of what the rules, regulations that government have decided to impose upon us. And the bill was 329 pages. I don't know how much the final act is, but what is really interesting is if you actually have time to look at the schedules, which are not with you. I mean, anybody that's wanting to look at the piece of legislation. But
everybody's got time, haven't they?
There's absolutely loads of them. Some people have questioned and said, hang on a minute, this is so detailed and extensive. They've got this together in a matter of weeks? Or did they have this already in the pipeline ready to roll out? So that's there for people if they want to understand how the law is going to affect you now, or what the coppers' powers are going to be.
I ain't got any unless you let them have some.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, law versus legal is a different subject, isn't it? There's going to be loads of people that...
I always like it when he says...
That's got to be for another day. I've got to tell everybody, listen, we've been an hour in so far. We've got another hour to go of this incredible information we're getting on COVID, what am I calling it? Coronavirus, COVID-19, CV-19, what shall I call it?
Pandemic?
I don't know, but we're talking about that.
Yeah.
Pandemic.
Yeah, the pandemic, yes, exactly.
And I haven't been able to give you a link yet, but I've seen today a really good video from a doctor. I've sent it across to Bex. The link is pretty damning. The documentation is there for people to see, and this virus, part of it was created. One of the people that was involved in China was actually studying in North Carolina, and if you follow the video and the links to it, you'll see that there's a huge coincidence, if it could be said, that between what they were doing and what they were learning to do with this virus, how they were splicing and adding to it, making it more potent, more deadly, more dangerous, all to do with the lungs from a mix of SARS into the coronavirus. And this was definitely being designed as a biological weapon of war. So has it been accidentally released or knowingly released? But why would you make something more dangerous than it is? Why would you even go down that path?
But again,
we're insane, don't we? Oh, we are insane. Look, let me just tell everybody anyway, like I was just going to say, listening to Raconteurs News, myself and Aid, we've got Karen and Bex on again. We're talking about COVID-19, the psychological effects it's having on the population, as well as the physical effects. And also, I think there's something to be said about perhaps there being some sort of placebo effect here as well. You know, with people getting any sort of symptoms, anything, they feel anything, you know, any little thing, and they feel like they've got it. And of course, if they go for testing, they'll be told they've got it because it's a 90% false negative. And my nurse who does my, one of the nurses who does my bandages, she's had it, and so she's been diagnosed with it, had it, and come back to work nursing.
I think the placebo effect is really important. When people get so stressed over something, what happens is your body experiences physical symptoms, and that's called somatic symptoms as a result of stress. So PTSD is classic for it. When somebody is triggered, over whatever issue. If your body can't, if your brain and your mind can't cope with the stress of it, it will come out physically. Therefore, if you've got something you can't see that is supposed to be deadly, people are fixating on the supposed symptoms that the government are telling us, and you have that 24/7 on the news, constantly bombarded. You have then got a stressed psyche, and it's not surprising it's coming out physically.
Sweetening your immune all the time.
So,
people do need to be out in the fresh air and they need to be out in the sunshine. I was appalled to see that where they're saying, not to be out in the sun. People are distancing, they're keeping the social distancing going on, and yet the police are saying you can't travel more than a couple of miles away from your home. Why are you out? Well, if you've gone into an isolated area and you're with a family member that you're with all of the time, what is the problem? We're being trained, social engineering.
We've already been trained, haven't we?
We're being trained not to have cars.
We've always been queuers, haven't we? We'll queue, especially as British. We'll queue and we'll the order that's in place. We'll adhere to it. The unsaid order, which is that you queue and then you wait for your place to get to the place, to it. This is what they're doing. They're trying to inflict this upon us and then train us that, when this happens, this is what you've got to do. Stop in your house, stay in.
Once a week, go out and clap the NHS.
Oh, that just blagged my head.
That's not programming. Everybody comes out like cuckoos.
Yeah.
They
did it in our village, and we were on the phone, and you could hear my husband walking around the house clapping. I just thought, oh, please. I would clap any person in the national health that are genuine and helping and doing carers and what have you, but not the system per se. And that's what we're being programmed.
All we're doing is we're going out and we're clapping people that are allowed to work still. These are the people that are allowed to carry on with their lives.
But it's even more sinister. Yeah, but it's even more sinister. You'll have people starting to call you out if you're not seen to be clapping.
Yeah.
And that's communism. It's absolutely coming through.
That stops with the individual. If the individual doesn't allow that to happen, if you're going past somebody and they say you shouldn't be out, and you just say, look, I'm out, I'm out, and it's nothing at all to do with you, and just because the government says it's something to do with you, it isn't. Believe me, and I'll just go on my merry way, and you'll go on your merry way. So it's like you say. This is what we need to resist. We need to resist this where we're all out, stood clapping. It's not happened this week. This is the third week, and it's died down, and it's died a death by week 3, right? So people are fucking pissed off with that. They want out of their houses. They don't want to be told what to do. And what will happen is there will be underground place. It'll be all over social media that people are planning to meet up in certain city centres and certain places, and it will just all end up in a huge mishmash, water cannons and what have you, because there's not going to be enough. It's not like everybody's going to go out. There's only going to be a few, and it'll be working class, lads. Them rock hard lads wear the vest and they've got covered in tattoos and live in Dinning and got 2 birds on.
The whole thing is we're not asking or expecting people to be flaunting or putting anybody at risk, but there's a difference between people being responsible and being able to go out and to exercise and not be jeopardizing anybody else. And that's the part, like when we saw on the television, people supposedly flaunting it, walking together and doing this, that and the other. And my husband's going, well, that's bang out of order. Look at that. But when you looked at it, it was people exercising. It was people getting fresh air. People were not breaking. He's bang out of order, isn't he? People were not breaking the social distancing, but they were being highlighted and shamed as if they're all going out there and being irresponsible. These were densely populated areas. So how else can you go and exercise without people being around? I walked out from the village the other day, and a guy walking his dog sort of stepped up into a field entrance to keep the distance. People are capable of going out, getting on with their life, getting fresh air, sunbathing, whatever they want to do without jeopardizing other people. So this about not being able to get fresh air, get into a remote area and take your time outside is what needs to be fought. I'm not saying that you become reckless and deliberately, line up alongside somebody else or whatever, but people can be responsible. What is their problem? Now they're talking about that we might not now be able to exercise. Well, that can, you know what, in my book. But then we're going to start getting fined. We're going to have the police exercising their powers. And that, I can't believe that in this country, being British and going through and knowing what people went through in the wars and how we were stoic and fought back and resisted, I cannot believe that people will just go, okay, I'm going to do as I'm told and allow this to happen.
But we're living in a different time now, aren't we, Karen? I mean, we've been propagandized up to the eyeballs, but now propaganda's full in swing. So back then, we did have this, because we did feel like it was an invasion on that, we felt like that we wanted to defend, and we had that. We did have that. We had that where we felt that towards each other, that you want to defend your families and things like that. But so today, we're so driven apart. Even people, people don't know the neighbours, do they? Some people never speak to the neighbours and stuff. So we're so drifted apart. And anyway, I've spoken too much. Aidy, you had a question.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. You're spot on. But people have also got to apply some common sense. I think there's going to be a big problem, I think, of people who are going to be so paranoid and fearful that after 3 weeks, I don't think they're going to want to go out even then. I think either that or they think it's going to be absolutely safe, and then no, it's going to carry on. And I do worry about people that I think are just going to become isolated and too fearful to step out their own front door. A lot of them don't have social services now. They've cut back on going in to help people who are vulnerable. Everybody, the people that are going out and helping are the ones that are going out and doing multiple jobs for their own families, neighbours, friends who can't get out. And yet we're the ones that are being restricted on how much stuff we can get from a supermarket, despite us being the ones that are distributing it. It's a crazy system.
It isn't a system, is it, though?
So I've got a very unruly dog tonight.
Earlier on, I just wanted to see what he wanted to you have got an unruly dog, haven't you? My dog's laid down. He's usually the one that's causing no trouble. Go on, Ace.
Well, I was just thinking we ought to shoot Karen because she's clearly got COVID because she's coughing.
You have no idea how bad it's been. I'm badly asthmatic. And when we were going out shopping just before the lockdown and when it was coming into the lockdown, every time I was in a supermarket or anywhere, I would try and suppress the cough. And when I did cough, I'd go, it's asthma, because everybody goes, poof. And I'm saying to Bex, do you want to shop in here on your own? Because I will just allow my cough to come through. I'm absolutely living in fear of it because, the minute I do cough, I'm bad with my asthma. In fact, you probably weren't even aware of it, but I was really poorly in December and was hospitalised with pneumonia that went into respiratory failure. So I had a bumpy ride round about the 17th of December. So I know.
Sorry, I've just noticed that you were saying that, and I was actually laughing at a comment when you were saying that I was laughing at a comment. I'm really, really sorry. I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing at a comment that was in the chat room. Sorry about that.
Was it being something rude about us sat here in a dog?
Well, I was laughing at this one that I put up on here. It says, Lion Shares says, are animals banned from going outside? Does the law apply to them?
Well, tigers are already, that National Geographic has just reported on tigers supposedly having COVID-19. I think there was a German Shepherd dog and some cats.
Yeah, but BBC put it out there, so now we're going to see a spate of animals being either killed or abandoned. And I just think how irresponsible, even though one of the universities, I don't know if it was Sheffield or somewhere, had said there's absolutely no link to cats and the virus.
The thing is, though,
but then you see in China, they were saying that people were throwing their pets off balconies because they were fearful that the animal could bring the virus to the human. Yeah. And I just think we are in just horrific times.
But then again, global.
No, all it proves is we're just surrounded by fucking morons.
Yeah.
So
there's going to be a lot of animals abandoned in this, because of this.
Just going back to foot and mouth disease, there was I think the nearest confirmed or so-called confirmed case to me was somewhere out near Lincoln, I think. But I mean, that was obviously years ago.
Foot and mouth here. You're speaking to an expert on foot and mouth activism here.
But as I remember, there was herds and herds and herds of cattle and sheep and flocks of sheep all destroyed who had never been anywhere near anything that had got foot and mouth disease.
Exactly. We were paying, this government, the Labour government was paying subsidies on something like 6 million sheep. And he got rid of it in a swipe. And also we weren't importing enough milk from France, and all our dairy herds went. The animal suffering was off the scale with the foot and mouth. And I know of blood that was taken from sheep in Cumbria, where a farm was surrounded by the slaughtering that the military were doing with DEFRA, and the blood was not, the sheep and the farm did not have foot and mouth. This was absolutely orchestrated, knowingly and deliberately. And our area in East Yorkshire is renowned for pig farming, and the pig farmers knew that their animals would not be with foot and mouth. You work it out. And I'll tell you something else that's even more sinister, and I can't remember all the names and everything because it's a lot of years ago, well, 2000, 2001. But one of the relatives of a senior politician at the time went up to his neck in debt buying earth-removing equipment. And a matter of months later, he was using that equipment to dig trenches to put animals in. And a lot of those animals went into the ground not dead. It was shocking what we did, and it was political, and it was created. And there's not a person can challenge me on this that would be able to convince me otherwise, because I know how it was. A friend of mine got arrested under the Terrorism Act in Islington in London for voicing and with evidence and proof, and his life was then over. He's moved out into Lincolnshire, and I got backed off through my husband. I was backed down because of my connections and what was happening. I was under threat as well as because of what we knew, and that blood got out of the country into France, and there was no foot and mouth.
So when you've got agencies, shocking. Executive agencies of the government, such as DEFRA, quite happy to orchestrate that false scenario.
Oh, they wouldn't do that to us, would they?
No.
Everyone always thinks the NHS. You've got to trust the NHS
and DEFRA.
I'm sorry.
No. I can't even see a DEFRA badge without going into meltdown. It destroyed me, did that foot and mouth. It absolutely destroyed me.
Well, I don't want to be the person that's a little bit mean with the and time stricken, but we've only got up to F, and I think
go the next one.
Sorry.
Well, the next one.
And we've got quite a few. I've just looked through, and we've got quite a few.
But they're just quickies at the end. Don't worry.
So have we shown that? We've shown that one.
Yeah, we've shown that one.
I can delete that one then. I'll delete that one. I'll show this one. What's this one?
Well, this chap I cannot abide. Now, He's the one that's been threatening us with removal of our exercise rights. It's as if like we're in a open prison, isn't it?
Yeah.
But Hancock is the one that's the Secretary of State for Health. How interestingly, he was the Secretary of State for Digital, social media. So he was responsible for the 5G rollout. And then a year and a half ago, I think it was, he suddenly got shifted to be Secretary of State for Health. And again, just putting a few of those coincidental pieces of the puzzle together, he was insistent on rolling out the 5G, and then he's gone into being the top position for health. And what better way to suppress
5G.
the 5G health concerns nationally by those raising, when you've got somebody who's got a bit of a conflict of interest and I would say vested interest by having had fingers in both pies.
This is the fox in charge of the hen house.
Yeah. So
I've noticed, what I noticed from that picture is the difference between the, when it said stay home, protect the NHS, save lives. It used to be in white, didn't it? All in white, but now it's in yellow and it's sort of like got this red thing round it, and it's
warnings,
like it's an emergency or something like that. That's it. I find that interesting.
It's another propaganda tool.
It's a mind tool.
It's like, save the NHS first, your lives come second. Your lives are expendable, you stay at home and die, but we'll keep the NHS alive. It's a reversal.
And sending out the do not resuscitate forms to vulnerable categories of people, that is absolutely barbaric. I know Wales have apologised for it because it was predominantly in Wales. But
one of my customers, somebody who I know personally, had that September, October, and funnily enough, he was in with pneumonia.
Right.
And wanted him to sign they'd automatically put him on a do not resuscitate.
Well, do you know, that's interesting because on my paperwork when I was in hospital, there was this big respect thing, and that's party to it. And one of the nurses, when I was in a specialist part before they knew what was going on, had tried to talk about, have you got any wishes? And I think she was about to lead into it. And I said, I'll let you know as I go along, thinking it was like any do's or don'ts. I don't think it was. I think that was where they were leading into. I mean, it's absolutely shocking that you hit a certain age group and suddenly you start to become invisible or a burden.
You're no
I
longer
think what it is, they want to get rid of you old folks, because when you get to a certain age, there's just nothing you won't. There's nothing that a woman over a certain age won't say. There's just no embarrassment whatsoever. And I think that's what they try and do. They're trying to kill us all off before we get to the happy to say something very embarrassing in public age.
We just want to get rid of you before we have to pay your pension that you've contributed to all your life.
Yeah.
There you go, which is exactly what's just happened to me.
So.
Yeah, well, I have to say that my husband and I, when we worked it out, we paid over 80 years worth of full-time employment stamps. And when I hear people say that your pension is a benefit, I could go fucking AWOL with it.
Not a benefit.
It is not a benefit. It is our money. In fact, if you want me to not be involved with the NHS or anything, just pay us back what we've paid into with the interest it would accrue year on year, and I'd be very happy to take all those hundreds of thousands of pounds. Thank you very much. It just sends me, it's like a red rag. It really is. I've paid my dues. I'm entitled to my pension. It is not a benefit. But that said, I should get off my soapbox.
Next slide, please.
I'm always angry when I'm just typing something. Oh, dear me. Right, next slide, which is this one. So I've got a dog on my lap and it's trying to get everywhere. I
can't get legs on mine. Right, I put that up because if anybody is interested to see what the latest NICE guidelines are, which is what the NHS is supposed to sort of comply with, is look up the COVID-19 guidelines of how they're going to look after you if anybody is to end up in hospital, and to see just what the options are. I was listening to Radio 4 the other day, and interestingly, a consultant from the NHS rang in to say at the moment it's 2 options. I know. It's 2 options. It's
that was a dog and not me.
If you are seriously ill with it, there's 2 options. 1,
Die.
ventilation. Alexa, gonna have to take you out in a minute. And ventilation means sedation. So that means you can't speak to your loved ones, and if you end up dying, you will never be able to say goodbye because you're out of it. The other option is to be on the ward with oxygen, with a phone by your bed or your mobile, to speak to your loved ones for as long as you possibly can, to either recovery or death. And that was being openly discussed on Radio 4 yesterday. Day before yesterday. Yeah. So that's the situation. They're also openly talking about the DNR CPR ones of the completing the do not resuscitate forms. They're bringing... I think
I mentioned this on the show before, but I did when I was in hospital. I remember waking up in the middle of the night and hearing a nurse on the phone. I ended up bay, and she was trying to saying, "Oh, can't you get them to DNR? Can't you get them to DNR? I mean, it's either good. Just get if you can get them to DNR, we'll be okay." And that's all she was saying to this. Obviously, another nurse that they were trying to get somebody to a family to DNR their relative. So I know it goes on, and God knows what's happening in hospitals at the moment. That really, God knows what is happening. It must be like, I mean, we've got 81 people watching, and we've got 16 likes. I mean, come on, we must get more than that, and we've got 6 on Facebook. So we should get more than that. Give us a like, please, and if you've not subscribed, subscribe and hit the notifications button as well, and keep going back and hit the notifications button, because a lot of people are not getting notified when we are on. A lot of people are complaining that they're missing the live shows because they're not being notified. They're not complaining at us, they're complaining at Facebook.
We're talking about the DNR ones. There's a lot of talk online about people wanting to know what they're like, what they look like, how to complete them. And you can go on to the Resuscitation Council UK and look up case information about what needs to be considered with a DNR for not carrying out CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. And there are PDF ones you can download and have ready, sort of thing. It is a very sensitive subject. It gets very tricky if family aren't involved or an individual isn't involved, and they have the right to be involved with that. And it's something that all of us are going to face, but we do not know the circumstances when we depart. Some people are very proactive in arranging what they will allow to be done and what they won't. And personally, I think it should be talked about and encouraged with family discussions and members to have a plan in place. Everyone has a will in place. So I'd sooner it be with amongst family members who would know rather than hospital setting, which is sometimes...
But if you're not allowed any visitors while you're in there, you're at the mercy of whoever's dealing with you.
Yeah. So... a lot of very sensitive subjects being across mainstream media at the moment and online.
Are they doing that on the BBC? Are they really? I can imagine what they're doing on the BBC. I don't listen to BBC. I can't. But I used to listen to like Victoria Derbyshire's show, on 5 Live, and I've watched a bit of her on TV. But I can just imagine. I mean, this is a woman that claims to have had her breasts removed. based upon a gene that she's got. And this is a woman who made her way into journalism by sleeping with a guy. And I know it happens, it goes all the way, but how do we trust these people? How do we trust? We can't trust any of these mainstream people at all.
No.
Can we? Not a single one.
No.
And that's the problem, you see. Mainstream media have lost that edge, which is why they've had to generate this fake campaign of fake news all the time with alternative news sources as a way to discredit independent media outlets on internet platforms.
Well, it's like tonight, I was trying to share a video with Bex that I'd been watching, and it was taken down. It was deplatformed before I could bring it back up live. This is happening all the time. Anything out there that they don't approve of, they're just taking away your right or your freedom to have your opinion.
Got any freedom? It's Nazi book burning.
We haven't.
There is no freedom of speech. There is no freedom to do anything.
And
I'm afraid until people...
And you know something else as well, Aid, that's a statistic or
it's a what?
It's a statistic.
What?
Statistic.
A statistic?
Yeah.
That's easy for you to say.
Well, it wasn't, obviously.
That's like me. I get my...
You were not going to get away with that.
Statistic. Sorry?
You were not going to get away with that.
No.
No, this is reporting for the BBC.
Yeah.
But our generation and my generation, the people that came of age in the 60s are the hardest generation to deal with, because we knew freedom. When you grew up, I came of age in the 60s. That was my time as a teenager into my 20s. And we don't take shit. And they have a problem with that age group in particular, because we know how to stand up and declare and fight back. We've got some generations coming through who are easily to contain and deal with. So I think they'll be very glad when we all pop off in this particular age group, because they know they can't deal with this very easily. Every other generation coming after that seems to have been more contained, or something else has come along that's distracted or held them back, or they've just not seen the world not just seen the world in more open eyes. I don't know what it is, because I look around at some of the youngsters being pushed around and they've got no fight, they've got no backbone to it, and I just don't understand it. You expect the younger generations to be sort of challenging or questioning, and they're not.
And one example as well of the way to disarm the alternative media is the fake news campaign aspect that has the fact checker websites that are popping up all over, and everything gets slapped with a fake news.
Oh, God, yeah.
And one of them is fullfact.org, and I went looking on that, and it was Wuhan coronavirus has nothing to do with 5G. So they're also trying to disarm the 5G argument with a lot of these fact-checking websites. But when you actually read it, they're just very cleverly written with selective information to support their title. So it is just misinformation to suit.
I've got a friend, my mate in Sweden, loves to pay his tax, can kind of put up with the fact that his government maybe pays for some bombs, loves what the council give him, and his absolute Bible is called Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And I said that he should get a life, and he actually texted back, I would, but I don't know where to download one from.
I like it. Yeah.
And that is deadly serious, and yet he's a lovely guy, but you can't train fucking stupid.
Well, sometimes when you're posting out information or something you would like to get out there, this comes over the top of my post and it'll say, this has been identified as fake news. Do you still want to go ahead and post? And I haven't done that. I've then taken it, put it out on Messenger, because a lot of my friends will then put it out on their feed. But then I think that is a threat, because I haven't done it yet to see, because I don't want to be, shut down or anything else happen. But I believe that if you go ahead and post it I think you'll probably be taken off Facebook, because why would you say, do you still want to go ahead and share it or post it? To me, that's almost like
they're giving you the option to allow them to eliminate you.
Yes.
You mean, hang on a
You're not
minute, what could I... Oh, this would seem quite appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
Indeed.
much they need us. Yeah, watch V for Vendetta. For fuck's sake. Oh, God.
Yeah.
I want to get onto the money side of it, but once you've got through your slides, are there any more slides, Jason?
I think I'm done. Not far off.
I did do another one. What's this one? This one looks interesting. This one's...
Yeah, but if people look up that web post, it's an independent writer who's written a very good article about how the NHS is suddenly, very cleverly, turning the tables to make out that the elderly, those with comorbidities, those that need extra care, are being deliberately scapegoated to be the solution to keeping the NHS going. And it's a very personalised account, but with lots of really informative information on basically eugenic guidelines, done in a very, what's the word I'm looking for, masked way to make everybody save the NHS, but not those that really need it, who have paid their taxes all their lives for NHS care, deserve it, and should not be made to think they only have the opportunity of staying at home and dying unaccompanied without any help from the health service. So please read that, because it's one good way of getting the other side of the real picture across.
Shoot her then. We need to get some T-shirts printed with "I'm happy to cuddle someone who's coughing."
Hug a coffer. I think that's what you
Hug
said.
a coffer.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Are you referring to
You should just get a T-shirt that says "I'm happy to cuddle anybody."
I actually said to Bex, I'm going to have one say, "I cough because I have asthma," and on the back I'm going to put, "I think."
Yeah, or just get fuck off looking at me like that. I've got asthma, twat.
I know.
That one I put up because in the last few days, there's, I think, been three areas in the UK where people have set fire to 5G poles. So is that a sign that people are connecting the dots? Interestingly, on the 5G group for Hull, there's been a lot of new members signing up very rapidly.
And some trolls.
Yeah, and some trolls to try and sabotage. Yeah. But it is interesting that is now starting to happen.
Yeah.
So
I'm putting new members on virtually daily, checking them out and putting them on, and having to delete a few or block a few trolls. Normally I don't do that because I believe in people being able to see and to have challenges, but these were vicious. And with new people coming on, I didn't want people to discredit the kind of material that's on there. I want people to be able to go through it and read and make their own minds up. But we have had a lot lately. But interestingly, on some of the material that's on the Facebook page, I have had the Facebook police challenge me on, or stating, I mean, I showed the cover that came back from them, more or less saying that on some of the material that we have on there, that if it was to stay on there or be reposted, it would they would stop promoting the group, or they would prevent people from being able to join the group, which is a threat. I mean, I did show it to Bex, so I've had to back off a little bit because obviously we want the group to keep going. But again, this is your freedom of speech. You know, we're being...
That's self-censoring. So are you a 5G Hull, did you say? Is that Stop 5G Hull? Is that your group?
It's called Say No to 5G in Hull and East Yorkshire is the group. And
that's it.
As an admin on there, I'm sort of mindful I need to protect the group to go forward, but it's very frustrating that if I post something up, I can get this
you have to self-censor, don't you? In other words, you have to self-censor as well as censoring everyone else. You have to censor yourself as well, because apparently, there are probably things that you have to remove from there that you agree with, that you'd like to stay there, but you'll have to remove them.
I can't jeopardise the group.
But that's coercion.
Oh God,
It's passive aggressive force.
Yes, it is.
To remove or bury your website for people to join in the back of internet beyond, and block people from joining, finding you. If that is not an outright other punishment in your face, I don't know what is.
Yeah. And it's a tricky one, because I've been compliant because I don't want to jeopardise the group.
Because they will not give a toss about freedom of expression, right to private life, and to share that with others on a platform.
And I just thought, interestingly, this has become very prominent when we're not actually attending meetings.
What do you mean?
Well, normally we could discuss all of this in the meetings.
Oh yeah. Face to face.
This has actually become more. This is actually highlighted more now when we're in lockdown. Because normally it wouldn't bother us, because we would discuss it or show it at a meeting, and we're not in a position to do that because there's no meetings.
Yeah. So any meetings that you do have will be ones like this that they can watch, listen into, record, use, do what they want with, to find out who's saying what to them about what.
I've still got to get home and try and avoid hair flick on the way back, which is
just why say you were pissing by his window.
I was pissing by the door.
Listen, there's two left.
Two left. Go for it.
Go on,
right, and I've got both already now. This is the first one.
Yeah.
Go for it.
What does this one mean?
What's this one? Well, funnily enough, I was sent that tonight, and there's quite a bit online, and I don't know whether it's got any gravitas or whether it is what do you call it when they throw you a griffin? Something to just a red herring, right? Is it something else to distract people from the 5G possibility as the cause, or has this person been involved with creating the coronavirus? So if you type his name in, there are videos popping up and some interesting news articles. So feedback on that is wait and see what people have to say on that. So I thought I'd put that name out there. And then
linking it, anything information about him, just pop it in the comments, and then we'll definitely see one with you. Carry on. Sorry, Bex.
And then there's one more. I think I can't remember.
Yes, there is this one.
Oh, yes. Now, this gentleman, I do urge people to go and watch on YouTube. He also has his own website. It's Vernon Coleman. He's a doctor of 50 years odd, and his logical breakdown as to what is going on in this country with our government makes an awful lot of sense. He presents only factual, substantiated information on which he discusses, and he did one 2 weeks ago with the lockdown, and he's done an update in the last day. And I do urge a lot of people to go and listen to him. He really is.
That's the video as well that I haven't had a chance to watch fully, but that's a really the third that I've watched.
Should show it on what's it called? Watch a video as well, which
I'll look him up.
Is recommending by a Dr. Rashid Buttar. That's Buttar, and Rashid is Rashid. Titled "Shocking Disclosure." So this is about serious revelations. Apparently,
I haven't managed to get to the end of it, but for the first third of the half, between the third and the half of the way in, was absolutely mind blowing. The documents they were showing, the connection to the doctor that went back into China to Wuhan, and what they were doing.
You could email that to Bex, and then get Bex to email.
I've already sent it to Bex in the email, so she should be able to get it to you. But people really need to watch it, because the government documents, the documents that have come out from the university and the labs were working, and then her connection to Wuhan and where she went back to in the time frame from 2013 forward to now, and the work they were doing on the SARS and how they've put these together to make it a weapon, a biological weapon. And the links and the documents that are contained in this format is pretty shocking. But if this is true, then what they have unleashed is potentially a big killer.
A biological weapon.
Yes.
So we're in that pit again
Grey
of not
area.
knowing whether this is the coronavirus is being man-made and is causing world chaos, or is that the distraction to the 5G? Is 5G the distraction to this, or is it a combination of both?
Yeah.
We just put in ideas or
So
suggestions.
the doctor's called what again? Please do the doctor's name again.
Rashid Buttar. So it's Dr. Rashid Buttar.
Titled Shocking Disclosure.
Right, okay.
And this is a video I don't think will stay up very long, even though he doesn't use any of the key words that would set off an algorithm to take him down. You know, he doesn't say the words, you know, he just clips into a silence. But I don't think this will stay up very long.
And that's interesting, isn't it, now that so many people who have got a lot of things to say are using a different language now. Like virus, people will say virus or anything to stop the algorithms from pulling them if they get flagged. It's a different world, isn't it?
And if these videos or documents weren't a threat, they wouldn't bother taking them down. They would just, they would let them ride out there because it's not important. Why are they stopping people from having information, fake or not fake? It shouldn't be a problem to them. Why are they so hot on deplatforming people and silencing people? Our freedom of speech has absolutely been taken in a way that I wouldn't have believed possible.
Shredded.
A few decades ago.
Our freedom of thought has also gone as well.
Yes.
And freedom of expression. Freedom of expression. Well, it's gone.
If you think you've got any of your own thoughts, as Bernays would, he'd argue with that, wouldn't he?
Yes.
Well, you guys are all right. You're taking woman. We're not like, transgender think the only person that should be able to use the word woman is themselves. And that's our common law definition.
Oh, talking of the XX versus the XY, there was a very interesting radio program again on Channel Radio 4 this morning, where they had, I think he was a geneticist, discussing the fact that there are more males dying from coronavirus than female. And the reason behind it, with his research and his book titled The Better Half, I think the book's called, is that the X chromosome has huge amounts of far more genes on it than the Y one. So when a woman's got an XX, they've basically got a double level of immunity to resource from for defense than what a male has with a single X. And that is the line of thought that's going on with corona and his research prior to that, to say no drug on prescription that you get, no vaccine that you get offered has that genetic consideration, and that the dose for a female is different to a dose for a male. And the reason why your drugs aren't tailored to that factor and vaccines aren't tailored to that factor is because it comes down to money and time for additional research. So I thought that was really, really, really important for people to listen to, because it has a huge implication against trying to oppose vaccines. That is a really valid argument by this guy. I don't know his name, but the book is called The Better Half. He was on Radio 4, 9 o'clock this morning, I think it was, or just a bit later. And also with regards to your drugs. So when people suffer side effects, is there a correlation between the XX and the XY regards dosage? None of that has been looked into, but as far as this guy is concerned, it's highly important. And like I said, that is the explanation as to why more men are dying than women. So
yeah, but more men die than women in that age group anyway. It's a known fact.
But he was correlating it with regards to your ability to fight infection and immunity, your ability to cope with an infection. So quite interesting stuff.
Want to get onto the money stuff, because I know you were looking at what employed people are going to get, what self-employed people are going to get, and what they've got to do to get it.
Well, my info on that at the moment is I've been helping people who are self-employed for the last couple of weeks trying to ensure with the councils that they get some money. Now, the difficulty there's been is a huge problem with self-employed versus employed. Anybody who's been employed is getting this 80% of their wages, as far as I'm aware. The self-employed is a total different kettle of fish. They were late in giving any support. Government were late in giving support to anybody that was self-employed, and it's only been this last week and a half where they've offered grant monies. And depending on how big your self-employed business is and how much floor space you occupy and things like that is dependent on what grade of grant you can be offered. But there is a snag, and I don't know if it's been resolved yet, but say you've got a big building that somebody owns as a landlord, and inside that building you've got 50 businesses that are all self-employed, renting space, leasing space. You need to know whether your landlord has registered that building as a single building for business rates for the whole building, or whether they've registered for each individual business to pay their own business rates. If your landlord is registered for business rates for one whole property, everybody who's self-employed within that building have been screwed over. They can't access grant money because it's based on who pays the business rates and what category of business rates. So if you've got a big building that's paying massive business rates, the poor little self-employed people that are renting space in that building can't get the basic minimum grant to tide them over. So there's been a lot of worried self-employed people. And also, if you are renting space on a complex and your landlord hasn't registered your self-employed business, a lot of people are suddenly finding they can't access funding either with grant schemes. So it is certainly not plain sailing for the self-employed at the moment in any way. And a lot of people are falling through a lot of loopholes. So it's not very fair. There's a lot of people can be sitting at home at the moment with 80% wages being paid, having a relaxing time, and there are other people whose lives are just crumbling around their ears with their jobs, no money for their family, especially if you've got a husband and wife who are both self-employed and you've got a double whammy. So it is certainly not an equal support system coming from government. But if people want to know about support for businesses, you can go onto gov.uk and keep a check of the guidance, which keeps getting updated. And it's called COVID-19 support for businesses. And then you can go into the various subcategories to find out what the latest support on offer is. But this is only for 3 months. People who have got mortgages are getting mortgage relief for 3 months, but tenants aren't. Tenants are not getting any support from that avenue. The courts, there's no court processes going through. Anybody facing evictions can breathe a sigh of relief until the 25th of June, I believe. So all processes in courts are being frozen till then. And no landlord can evict a tenant at this time with court papers, because there's a ban on that for 3 months from the Ministry of Justice. So we've got this block until June. Whether we get a further wave of whatever this thing that is happening comes back again, I don't know. But the fact that they've put a Corona Act passed through legislation like grease lightning, and they can use these powers for a couple of years, I don't think things are going to be settled for a long time.
No.
So I don't know what's going to happen to everybody after the 3 month stint, whether people are allowed to go back to work and start to get their lives back on track with income. If it doesn't happen, government's going to have to come out with a load of new packages. And people, I think,
they haven't got money to do that.
People are just, I think, at that point are not going to be civil. I think that at that point it could be.
Yeah, but the thing is, Bex, the money has been allocated from the government into the banks. The banks are not allowing it to get where it needs to be.
Banks aren't giving out loans.
No, they've just sucked it up again.
Well,
and the thing is, as well, if you think about it, if the rental markets crash, they don't free up for people to get mortgages. You're going to lose your credit score, which will prevent you from going into rented again, because if you've defaulted, that's going to rock up on your credit score. the bubble's going to burst on properties because everything's going to be crashing down. Is that going to be the point where the government's going to be in a position to buy properties right, left, and centre? Because
I don't need to.
them.
It's
Sorry?
just a huge land grab anyway, because once they've crashed the economy, and all these people have, we've gone way past the, you don't have to pay your mortgage for a month, and things have really turned to shit. They'll be evicting people and repossessing the houses they never possessed
in the first place.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a crazy world, and the layers upon layers of deceit and illusion. Just some days
what people have got to remember is that the governments, the royals, it's all the same bloody bloodlines as the banks. It's just that some are further up the pecking order than others, and so there's this level of control above all governments, almost.
The real
apart from
government,
the ones that we've been bombing the shit out of, and the idea being that if whoever makes the money is in control, because it's the one thing that everybody uses. So why would anybody even think that a government is in control? They're not. They're just not.
The whole thing is just one mind game, one mind scramble. It's just whatever you try to hang on to give you a belief of sanity, that you've got some security, because it's all down to control. Once people lose that feeling that they've got any control over a situation, that's when things start to crumble. Everyone's being really nice and polite at the moment, but when you watch things in Spain and Italy, when people haven't got any pennies and can't get any food on the table, that's when people start to lose it.
Well, look what happened in the Great Depression in America. People who had high-profile jobs, professors, didn't matter who they were begging for food, because your money becomes meaningless when the prices go off the scale. People were losing the jobs right, left, and centre. Well, you saw it. People were going out and jumping out of multi-story windows when they saw everything go, and that's happening now. It's starting to happen now. Anybody's got stocks and shares, they're just absolutely tanking. This is going to end
won't matter anyway, because we'll have a new money system soon. So,
well, green,
yeah,
it's a total shift.
And it's very clever, really, what's happened with this virus outbreak, inverted commas, because you look back and you see the programming that they've done with series. There's one knocking on Netflix at the moment called Terrius, I think. And if you look at season 1, episode 10, and you look at the subtitles, I think it's South Korean series. It's coronavirus in the bag. It says it's a coronavirus. It says it's man-made, and people are going, oh, there you go. You've got the film Contagion, you've got Outbreak, you've got all of them, and we go for a dose of fear and we love it in the cinemas, and then all of a sudden
we're living it.
It's a bit more, we're supposed to be in it and living it, and it affects. I think it's just took everybody by storm, hasn't it?
The big difference with this one, the big difference with this one is that this affects everybody around us.
Yeah.
Whereas everything else, 9/11 was a few thousand miles away, and the
That's
other way
it.
kind of is, Afghanistan and whatever. It's just, but this is here.
That's what I posted. I mean, we should have. I saw a comedian that I follow, a guy called Norm Macdonald in America, and he does his own thingy show, and he does this show. Do you remember the good old days when? And then you had to add something to the end of it, and so he did it. He said, "Do you remember the good old days when all the news was jetliners crashing into buildings?" It's got so much now that it actually affects people. It's affecting on a personal level.
Yeah.
When 9/11 happened, and then when eventually the truth came out, as much as we think was the truth, and how that came about on social media, and the citizens pieced it together with the scientists, and we revealed that we were told a pack of lies with what happened. But nothing's changed. Everybody knows what happened with it now. Well, most people do. But it's just like, well, there's nothing we can do. The system has already been rigged that we can't make a difference. It still goes on. Nobody's held accountable for what really happened. And it's like, I feel it's going to be the same with this.
Yeah.
It's going to be, we know that there's going to be stuff come out eventually that will show this to be not what we're being told, for reasons that not necessarily going to be advantageous to us in the future. And people are going to be, well, what can we do? And I hate that feeling. I absolutely hate that feeling. It's a depressing one.
And the shifting now that's going to happen, we're being trained not to use cars. We're being trained to think that we can't drive a car. This is all part of what they want. You don't drive a car. Why can't you drive a car to a desolate area and self-isolate? There's no logic to it, but we're being told we can't. Now we're going to be saying we can't exercise. Well, they can't police everybody. And the thing is, at the moment, people need to be outside. They need to be in the fresh air on beautiful days, because it's your healthiest time is when you're in nature or you're away from all of the containment or the noise of your house or the TV on or your computer screens, the radiation that's coming off everything. Being outside in the sunshine, in fresh air is recharging. It's the healing. And we're being taught that we can't do that. They don't even want you going in your gardens. And I'm thinking, what the hell? France, isn't it? You're not meant to go further than 2 kilometers from your home. Is that what's coming next? How can you justify it? What is the logic behind it? And if we have a society where nobody's prepared to stick the head above the parapet and challenge it, enough of it so that the police can't deal with it and say, do you know what? I am going to self-isolate. I'm not going to contaminate anybody. I don't want to catch it. I don't want to give it to anybody. But you are not going to stop me from accessing sunshine and air. And if people don't stand up and fight that principle, then we're done. We're absolutely in house arrest, effectively.
We're in the end game. We don't know how this is going to end up doing. We don't know how this is going to end. I don't know. Nobody knows how this is going to end. But we certainly are in times where it's a little bit dodgy, shall we say. It's interesting times, though, as well. But we've come to the end of our show. So I'd like to say thank you to you, Karen and Bex.
No problem.
For joining us, and I hope we got everything done in the right order this time. And
you were spot on. You were spot on.
I still can't get over the Shackleton's high chair mind. How rude!
Shackleton's high chair, yeah. Never
they couldn't be further from the truth. Anybody that knows me, if they think I'm infirm.
Just thanks to the girls for coming on again, because I generally have had emails saying when are they coming on. Also, Bex, people have been asking where can they get in touch, or is there anywhere that anybody can get in touch, or would you rather just kind of go, no, I'm happy to bring you information when I've got it, but I don't want to be in touch, and that's fine if you do.
No, if we can help anybody in any way, if they can come through you, then we'd gladly help. So that's fine.
Yeah. Anything from locking yourself to a fence to stopping a frack site to being a million and one things as well. Oh my God, yeah.
Right. Well, there you go. Well, anyway, thanks for everybody who's been in the chat room. I know it's been a really active chat tonight. I'll try to look back through it later on. But I'll probably fall asleep doing it. But it's not your fault. But I know it's all been great. And if you're listening and you're not in the chat, then please join in. The moderators in there don't bite. I assure you. Apart from me, probably will do.
Well, I just hope you wish me good luck on trying to get home before Herr Flick catches up with me. Bearing in mind my car's a marked number plate.
You have to move your lights off.
I know. I thought and why I'm out.
Under curfew, yes.
All right. Anyway, I'm going to do this. This is the reason why I took my green screen down like 10 minutes before end. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to call for this. Hang on.
Have you got well used to it now?
Oh yeah.
I just want to say, if anybody's not sure about what's going on, 4 films to watch.
TARDIS.
What is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
There's your TARDIS coming upstairs.
Cool. Wow.
Posh.
There you go. That's how we're going to finish every show. Thanks very much to everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow night. I'm looking to put a round table. I've got a guy I'm hoping to get on, but if not, I'm going to look to put a round table together. Hopefully, get Webby on and get a few other people on and continue talking like this. And Karen and Bex, you're more than welcome to come back again tomorrow night. That's no problem at all with us. You've got plenty to bring to the table. So thanks again to Karen, Bex, and to Aid for my co-host. And we'll see you tomorrow night. Take it easy. Give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you don't like us. It don't matter as long as you.
Don't matter.
Bye everybody.
Bye bye. Bye bye.